Adapting, overcoming, becoming proactive, and thinking outside of the box is what a group of restaurant owners are doing in Albany, New York. They've given away so far over 20,000 free meals. Joining me today to talk about this is Jason Pierce, the owner of Savoy Taproom in Albany. Thank you so much for joining us today, Jason.
Good morning. My pleasure.
Jason, tell us, what is the Feed Albany COVID-19 relief? Everybody's talking about it. How did it start? How did you get this idea? And what is it exactly?
Sure. Well, the moment the pause started in New York back on, I believe it was March 16th, both Dominic Panormo and myself recognized almost immediately that we had kitchens all over the city that were no longer being utilized, to produce restaurant food. And we had unemployed restaurant workers that were now out of work. So we had the idea, okay, why don't we use these spaces to produce food and these staff to make the food and hand it out initially to unemployed restaurant workers. But very quickly we realized that there were at-risk and in-need individuals throughout the region that could use our help. And, from there it just exploded. We went from, a single location to locations all over the city where we produce food, anywhere from 3 to 5 times a week. We're out delivering food, with anywhere from 1 to 4 vehicles every day. We do prepared meal handouts 3 times a week. We send meals to different organizations that assist in-need people, such as the South End Children's Cafe, Kitchen 216. We work with area hospitals, nursing homes to make sure that critical essential workers are taken care of. So, we're unbelievably busy trying to help everyone by connecting them to food.
It sounds like you're busier than ever. How are you managing it? When do you start? Do you get up at 5 o'clock in the morning and go until midnight?
Well, it's funny you say that. This morning I started at 5:30, and yeah, I'll work until the evening. To be honest with you, those of us in the restaurant business at this point, we're used to it. In other words, we're used to crazy hours. We're used to, 14-hour days, not knowing when we might be working or not working. I will say this, though, I think it's probably been a couple months since I've had a day off. I could probably use one pretty soon. Definitely working harder now than, I ever was before when I was, technically employed.
Jason, a lot of restaurants are struggling today. How are you guys managing to do this and to donate all this food and all these meals and groceries? How do you do it?
Well, first of all, we've been incredibly lucky. The support we've received from the community in terms of direct donations on our GoFundMe page and from organizations, Bank of America, different companies locally that have supported us. We've been able to raise a tremendous amount of money to, fund our operations, to purchase food, to purchase the packaging materials, to, buy fuel, to rent vehicles. And in addition, we have partners, Cisco, Driscoll, Kilcoyne Farms, and others, the regional food bank, who are providing us with a ton of food. So, so far we've been very lucky to have all the resources available to us that we need in order to meet our objective and get the mission done.
Do you have a lot of volunteers and a lot of employees? How many people approximately do you have a day?
Well, first of all, believe it or not, we're not paying anyone right now. Everyone is doing what they're doing out of, the goodness of their heart. So, myself, Dominic, everyone else, none of us are seeing a dime from this. None of the volunteers are getting paid. These are all people that simply, have time and want to use it to help other people. We have a tremendous wealth of volunteers. On any given day, yesterday, for instance, we probably had a total of about 40 volunteers working.
Wow.
Yeah.
And how are you guys managing this with the whole social distancing? Because I know some of the restaurants kind of got the brunt from people about, being in the restaurant together, cooking the meals while everybody's talking about social distancing. How do you manage to cope with that?
Well, there's a number of things. I mean, first of all, we verify with our volunteers that they're not COVID-19 positive, that they're not showing any symptoms, that they haven't been directly exposed to someone who is. So that's, kind of the first line of defense. Beyond that, we have strict hand washing, guidelines that we follow. People wear gloves, people wear masks, to the extent possible in the kitchen, we exercise social distancing. It's also important to remember, by the way, that the majority of infection with COVID-19 occurs, when, someone coughs and you breathe in that air. It's not something that's going to get you sick, via a meal. So, we take every precaution necessary to make sure, most importantly, that, the packaging materials don't get infected, the bags that things are going out in are clean. We disinfect our vans. This morning we had one of our vans disinfected by the sheriff's office. The other one was sprayed down with disinfectant. So, we take every precaution we can.
That's a lot of work too.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of work and dedication.
Yes, it is.
Are you distributing the meals simply to the Albany area, or are you going outside of the city of Albany?
Primary distribution is within Albany County. So, probably 75% of those people who are getting meals delivered anyway are right in Albany County. Others are in Rensselaer County and Schenectady. In those counties, we don't service the entire county. We service the population area. So the city of Troy, the city of Schenectady. We do have distributions that occur, for instance, we'll go out and hand out meals in Watervliet. We'll hand out meals, multiple times a week at DP at 25 Chapel Street in Albany, or Savoy Taproom on Lark Street. And we do get people that kind of, are able to drive but still need a meal. And they might come from, say, southern Saratoga County to come and get some meals.
The lockdown is projected to end on May 15th. Of course, we don't know if that's going to happen or not. But let's pretend that it's going to happen, right? How are you going to continue this mission? Do you plan to continue this, or is this something that you've created simply for COVID-19 pandemic?
Great question. First of all, I think it's important to recognize that, the Albany County area is not going to reopen on May 16th. It might reopen sometime early in June. And when that reopen occurs, it's not going to include restaurants. They're not going to be phased in until phase 3 of the reopening. So the vast majority of restaurants in the area, unfortunately, probably won't be reopened in any way, shape, or form until, I'm thinking, early July at the best. So right now, we will continue to provide the services that we do to the people that need them. As this crisis winds down and changes, and frankly, that may be a roller coaster of sorts, with some ups and downs, then we'll be repurposing the organization. It will stay. It is here for the long run. And our goal is to serve as a, conduit to connect people that are in need to food resources that they need. So we'll continue to work with the food pantries to deliver groceries all over the region, which is something we do now, by the way, on a daily basis. We'll continue to work with different agencies to refer people. We're currently working with the Department of Health, the Office of Mental Health, Rehabilitation Support Services, Jewish Family Services, the list goes on.
So is that how you do it, Jason? You reach out to these organizations, and that's how you decide, how many meals are you going to deliver a day, and for what organization, or to what organization?
So the people we're delivering to us come in a number of ways. Somebody might go on our website and click the link that simply says, I need food. They may call our number, which is 518-261-2754, and say they need food. Or they may be referred to us by one of those agencies I mentioned. Those agencies actually have a special online portal system that they use to send us referrals. So there's certain agreements in place and understandings in place between us. If somebody calls the 211 line that's operated by United Way, for instance, they have a flow chart that says, if you can't cook and you don't have transportation, refer this to Feed Albany. So, we're one of those critical providers.
In addition to this charity effort, you're also a business owner. You own Savoy Taproom. How is your restaurant doing today? Do you do takeout, or are you completely shut down?
Savoy Taproom is offering takeout, curbside pickup, and delivery. And, we're biding our time until we can reopen.
What's your advice for restaurant owners who are watching this interview today?
I think the best advice I have is advice that I've gleaned over a lifetime of successes and failures. And that is that, especially in a situation like the one we're faced with now, you have to be willing to adapt and overcome. You have to be fluid, you have to be dynamic, you have to be proactive. So right now, everybody has kind of set back and said, okay, wow, this is, insane. And I'm just doing my best to deal with it. But now's the time to sit down and say, hey, what's my plan? What's my strategy? I need to go from here to here. How am I going to do it? How am I going to reinvent my business, myself? People need to start thinking outside the box proactively, and now's the time to do it, not the day they say, hey, you're allowed to reopen.
Anything you would like to add, Jason, that I haven't asked?
I think more than anything, I'd like to take a moment and just acknowledge the positive of this crisis, and that has been that there's just a tremendous sense of community. There's an amazing willingness on the part of people from all walks of life to help their fellow man and woman. And it's incredible. It's heartwarming to watch. All the people that come to us to volunteer, all the people that, do things on their own. And for, every volunteer we have that, kind of gets that public credit for helping, there's probably 1,000 other people that are doing something really kind and special that don't get the recognition, but they're out there and they're doing it, and it's pretty amazing.
And if someone wants to volunteer and help you guys, how can they do it?
If you would like to volunteer or if you'd like to donate to support our efforts, you can go to www.feedalbany.com, follow the link to volunteer or follow the link to donate.
I saw on your profile picture that you're featuring a chef.
Chef Elliot Vogel came on board with us literally days before this crisis. The poor guy, came in to reinvent our food program, and then our food program didn't exist. So it's been interesting, but he's starting to, look at ways to reinvent Savoy. One of those was, we put his face out there this weekend and said, hey, here's some choices, vote for what meal you'd like to see us put out this weekend. People voted, and then he, prepared that meal as kind of the chef special for the weekend.
Jason, thank you so much. I really appreciate you taking the time today.
Of course.
What you're doing is tremendously amazing.
Thank you. It's, we all do what we can when we can. And certainly this is one of those times where Dominic, myself, others, we certainly had the bandwidth to do a lot. So we're trying to use it to do what we can. So
right. In the midst of the whole entire crisis, you're finding the light at the end of the tunnel.
And the irony of it is, Paula, that I'm a strategic thinker, someone who likes to plan and strategize and optimize. And I have to have something like this to do right now. If I didn't, I'd be losing my mind. So,
right. And that's what positive and psychology experts say, that, you have to take situations like this and put all of your energy and create something positive so that you can come out of this in a positive way and not be depressed, and because that's not going to help.
This is a way for those of us in the business to think about what's happening, right? And be confronted with it, but yet also at the same time, strangely take our minds off of it. So it is a weird dichotomy of sorts.
And thank you for joining us for this interview. Be safe.